where are some good places to start with juicers?
And the reason for me getting into juicing is because I almost lost my life a few years earlier. My skin cleared up for the first time in my life, and I remember just taking a shower, and then I was like looking at my body, like, oh my gosh, my skin's like a normal person. And I started crying in the shower. And to this day, I don't know if I was crying because I was so happy that my skin cleared up for the first time in my life, or that I was so scared because now I need to eat this raw food diet for the rest.
Hi, I'm Chris James, and you're watching A Healthy Alternative. Today, we have a very special guest. I have John from discountjuicers.com. I reached out to John because when I very first started learning about, different ways to maintain health, wellness, detox, and things of that nature, he was at the forefront of, the juice movement. That was just, my first introduction. So because we're going to be moving into some juicing as a community, I figured I'd like to bring John on. Get to know him a little bit better, ask him some questions, and really get his expert opinion about what juicers we should be looking at and why. So with that being said, John, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, man. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. So like I said, I started my wellness journey probably about 7-8 years ago. And at the time, juicing just came to my forefront. And I'm like, man, this seems like something that, could be really beneficial. And at the time, I think you were pretty much the only person, and I think still to this day, you're like the most reputable source when it comes to juicers and juicing. But I wanted to ask to kind of get started, like your YouTube channel has been around for a very long time. How did you get started with juicing and eating raw, if that's, what you do, and why?
Sure. Yeah. So my YouTube channel has been around for 15 years, but I got started way before that, actually. My business got started 25 years ago selling the juicers, but actually even going back further than that, I got into this diet and lifestyle 28 years ago when I started eating and juicing, to change my diet and change my health. So back then, I wasn't the juicer guy. Back then, Jay Cordich, the juice man, was the juicer guy. He was on the infomercials late night. Rest in peace, Jay. And he got me into juicing. So I saw him doing an infomercial. I don't do the same ones like he does, but like I'm kind of carrying the torch for him because he was on late night infomercials, and I'm, all over YouTube with the most juicer reviews of anyone. And I don't just stick to any one brand, although I have my favorites. Whereas he just sold his one Juice Man 2, which is the first juicer I bought off TV. And I thought, oh, I could do it cheap, man. I could just go to Walmart and buy a $30 juicer because he's selling his for like $200. And 28 years ago, $200 was a lot of money. It's still a lot of money, but back then, $200 was a lot more money, But then I bought the one from Walmart. I was trying to juice just like he was in the infomercials, putting the parsley through there, and the machine started smoking because it just didn't have the power. And I'm like, that's why you need to get the good one from the guy. And so that's what I kind of show these days. I show, the capabilities of these machines in some levels, sometimes trying to break them purposely. And in some cases, they actually don't break, which is good. In some cases, they do break. But yeah, so that's what I do. And then the reason for me getting into juicing is because I almost lost my life a few years earlier from complement immune deficiency. I was basically hospitalized with spinal meningitis, and the doctor said he had no treatment for me because it was the viral version, not the bacterial version. And that, in my mind, my life is only here today because of higher powers, is what I like to say, because the doctors had no treatment for me. And so then when I was in the hospital at that point in my life, I thought about it like, John, what's really important to you? I just gotten out of college and all these things and had my whole life ahead of me, supposedly. But then I'm like, man, I'm going to lose my life here. I might not even make it out of the hospital. That's what the doctor's telling me. And even if I had $1 million, could I write the check, Mr. Doctor, $1 million void unless John is alive and walks out of here? Even all the money in the world couldn't have saved me. And all the money in the world can't save people like Bill Gates from their health ailments if they don't value their health and, more importantly, invest in your health bank account, right? we want to call it a health bank account or just your health account, whatever, but we need to make investments every day to our health. Every time somebody watching this is eating health, you're eating some, plant-based foods that's minimally processed, right? And more importantly, they're avoiding something that's worse, right? They're putting money into their health bank account. And there are ways you could make bigger, deposits in your health bank account by, doing things a little bit differently. And I have my own views about this, of course, which we could get into if you're interested. But yeah, so I had to really put money into my health bank account because I was basically withdrawing money by eating the standard American diet, the processed foods. And even though back then I thought I ate pretty healthy, quote unquote, because I read my ingredient labels, I had already cut out red meat, but I still got sick. So that just showed me, man, you got to do a lot better. And that's when I heard Jay Kordich on the Juice Man infomercial say, hey, juicing could build your immune system. That's what he said. He said you could have more energy and it'll do all these things for you. And that was basically my first step into eating a plant-based, minimally processed, fruit and vegetable dominated raw diet.
Wow. Man, I never knew that. I don't know if you really share that on your your
not much. Some old videos have my story in it, but like I don't really talk about it too much these days.
I knew it had to be something like that though, because I think we all start there. Like anybody who's in the limelight right now, if you will, and like on YouTube and really doing content. They've been doing it for 10, 15, 20 years. In my opinion, it's usually something much deeper than like greed. It's like, no, I had a situation or I have knowledge or I have compassion for people and I want to help people. And you've always come off so excited, high energy. Can I ask you, like, how old are you?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I don't mention my age due to privacy reasons and whatnot, but I will say that, I've been doing this for a long time and I think my dad's working and I definitely look younger than I am.
I think you look a lot younger than you are. I was like, man, I don't know how old this guy, but that I completely understand. So you decided to start making these changes. If you don't mind, can I dig a little deeper? Like how long was it before you started to see like benefits from juicing?
So, I mean, juicing was my first step. So, like, basically, I wasn't ready for any kind of like major dietary change back then, but what I did do is I juiced for about 6 months and I still ate my regular diet where I, wasn't eating red meat. I probably should have been eating a lot more fruits and vegetables back then. And I thought I was eating healthy. But the thing is, I basically skipped breakfast. And instead of eating breakfast, I would now drink a juice for breakfast, right? And even if you just skip your ham and eggs and drink a juice, you are going in the right direction, in my personal opinion, right? That's a good thing. You're putting in better things than what you're replacing, right? And that's my whole goal for people is, hey, what can you replace in your diet that's moving you in a better direction? So then I would have I would have juice for breakfast. Then I would have lunch, whatever I had for lunch, turkey sandwich, because I wasn't eating red meat, but I still ate turkeys and whatever else. And then in the afternoon, I'd have a juice snack as my afternoon snack. And then I just have my normal dinner. And, that was really sustainable for me because I wasn't going on this crazy 30-day juice fast, only juice. I wasn't, just only drinking juice for, weeks or months. I mean, this was able, and the more important thing is that my body was better able to accept the different juices and the different foods that maybe I hadn't been eating before. So my microbiome could catch up, my digestive system could catch up with like, oh, John's eating more vegetables in the basically, in my opinion, easiest way to get them into you that's easiest to digest without all those hard fibers that could really, mess some people up if their microbiome and their digestive system is not used to it. So that basically got me started for 6 months. And, for 6 months time, man, like I lost weight, I was feeling better, I mean, I don't know if I like had any life-changing experiences that happened a bit later when I got into more deeper colon cleansing and then into raw foods. But I mean, that's why to this day, I mean, I have a video why I don't necessarily recommend long juice fasts for people. Okay. Because I've seen so many people fail. Not to say that people can succeed, because I've also seen many people succeed. But unfortunately, I've seen more people fail on a juice fast than succeed. I mean, I love Joe Cross. He made the movie Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, which has inspired thousands of people, more people than I probably ever inspired. But the fact of the matter is that like even the trucker guy that was in there and even Joe himself went on the juice fast, got amazing results, turned their health around, but then afterwards it was not sustainable because they're not teaching themselves how to eat healthy over the long term. They're teaching themselves like the drug mentality. Oh, you get sick, take a drug, it makes you better. Then you just go back to what you're doing because you're not making the changes that are going to keep you healthy for long. So
Mm.
the way I recommend people juice fast now is I say do a perpetual juice cleanse. And if people, what's a perpetual juice cleanse, John? And I say, well, perpetual juice cleanse is just drink juice every day, like I did, man. Drink it for breakfast every day, and don't eat your bacon and eggs or whatever else you're eating, right?
Yeah.
And then just keep eating the rest of your stuff and eat more fruits and vegetables during that time, right? And maybe drink another juice later in the afternoon if you want to get a bit more juice in you. And that way you're doing it consistently every day. Your body's being able to keep up with that. Your body's getting used to that. And hopefully once you start juicing for breakfast every day, you're going to start making healthier choices over the long term. But more importantly, you're going to keep up the juicing on a regular and everyday basis for the rest of your life, like I have. And I mean, it works.
I would say
and
it works.
I didn't gain the weight back like Joe Cross and some of the other people. And the juice fasting, I think that could really get you some, especially people that have an eating disorder, could really get in some trouble, you know?
Okay. Yeah, definitely. And this is one of the reasons why, so with my brand, we teach lifestyle. And we teach, dietary strategy along with juicing, right? It's not just, hey, just juice. We're going to teach you how to transition your diet. We've gone pretty in depth to make sure that we have a higher success rate, because what I was seeing the exact same thing you're seeing. I originally started teaching water fasting, and that's like, the main therapy we teach. And what I noticed was that people were, losing weight, reversing disease, feeling better. But then, like you said, it was like the drug approach. And now they stopped doing the therapy because they're like, oh, it's just a pill you take for a period of time to get better. And then you go back to your old habits, and they were getting very, very sick again, even sometimes developing new issues. So you're completely spot on with that. So you started doing the juicing, which obviously netted you some good results. You continued doing it, but at some point you decided to really start tweaking your diet more. I'm assuming just through, research and figuring out more information. What was the dietary change that you kind of decided to live life by?
Yeah, sure. So I was juicing for about 6 months, and then actually, when I'd shop at like health food stores. So I'd actually, one of the health food stores actually was the Alvarado Street Bakery. If you know that brand, they make sprouted breads and things. But actually, they were located in the city I was living at the time, and they actually had a little health food store where they're actually all their employees, because it was a worker-owned company or whatever, would shop and get discounted rates, and also you could come in as a public to buy stuff there, So I think for a while I was maybe buying the bread there for, the reduced ones with the bad parts. But they also sold produce and had books and a whole little health food store, which is really nice. So actually in that food store, I was buying some food one day, and I looked on the bottom shelf, and there's this book called Cleanse and Purify Thyself by Dr. Richard Anderson. And I hadn't read a book since college. I picked up the book. I mean, it was a small little book back in the day. I guess it's gotten larger now. And I just started reading it, and the book just drew me in, man. And it just, like a good novel, drew me in. And I'm like, I just read probably like half the book, sit in the store. I'm like, John, if you read half the book in the store, you should just buy the book, take it home. Yeah. And I bought the book, took it home, read it cover to cover. And in that book, they say, what's really bad. And I don't know if I agree with all this, knowing what I know now, but I would agree with a lot of it. Basically, they said that you get toxic on the inside, and you need to cleanse out. He said you could start by juice fasting. That'll get you more alkaline. And I'm kind of paraphrasing. And then he said, but then you need to go on this raw food diet to no. Then he said you need to go on this herbal cleanse with psyllium and bentonite with these different herbs and water and all these different things. And then after you cleanse yourself, then you need to go raw food so that you don't toxify yourself again eating the same diet you were. So basically what I did back then was I basically did this cleanse. For the first time in my life, my skin cleared up, because I have always had some autoimmune issues as a child, such as asthma, such as eczema, and allergies, which are all autoimmune conditions, likely because I was not breastfed as a child, and my bifidobacteria didn't increase in numbers as much as it should, based on some of the studies I've seen with kids that don't get breastfed. Could cause some autoimmune conditions like I had and experienced. But for the first time in my life, like, my skin cleared up, which, like, even all the drugs from the doctor, and the doctors promised me, like, John, when you're 13, you're going to become a teenager, you're going to get hormones, and you're going to grow out of your skin condition, because my skin was dry, and like it wasn't fun to be teased as a child and all these things and not have dates and stuff. So like 13, my 13th birthday, man. I woke up out of bed. I was so excited. My skin's gonna be good now because that's what the doctor said, right?
Oh, man.
And my skin was the same all through high school and everything.
Man.
But when I went on this cleanse, man, my skin cleared up for the first time in my life. And I remember just taking a shower because I really didn't notice. I was taking a shower. And then I was like looking at my body, like, oh my gosh, my skin's like a normal person. And I started crying in the shower. And to this day, I don't know if I was crying because I was so happy that my skin cleared up for the first time in my life, or that I was so scared because I need to eat this raw food diet for the rest of my life. I'm going to get my skin problems back again.
Oh man, that's hilarious, but also like very inspiring. You know, a lot of people deal with skin issues like across the board, many skin issues. And just like you, I mean, we've all been given bad information about what causes it, how to treat it. Well, they talk about treatment, which treatment is just like putting a Band-Aid on it, right? There's never a solution to the problem because the solution would hurt the industry. So we can't give you solutions, but we'll give you Band-Aids all day long. And then, of course, those Band-Aids are like laced with poison. So they usually have other issues that come along, which will give you a new treatment plan for you to go on. So that's, I mean, a lot of people deal with eczema stuff. And, you mentioned the breastfeeding thing. It's insane to me how many people think breastfeeding is weird now. I mean, when you were growing up or when your mother was, having babies and stuff, it was probably like more of a normal thing. But like in this generation, it's actually weird. Women think it's weird to breastfeed. And I've had these conversations and it's like, we have to get back to that ancient knowledge and wisdom and really doing things a natural way. So, well, now that you decided that you're going to, start doing the raw food, because I know for me, when I was looking to change my diet, it was very difficult transitioning because you didn't know what to eat. Everything seemed boring. Did you finally get to a place where you like really started to enjoy eating raw or, whatever diet you were using?
Yeah, so I went raw, and basically what I did was I went cold turkey because for me it was a carrot and a stick. One of the things that I learned back then, which I don't believe to be accurate now, and is still in some cases propagated by some people in the raw foods movement, is that they say basically all cooked foods basically causes this thing called leukocytosis, which is increase in white blood cell count, and the white blood cells are collectively known as your immune system.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it's like the boy who cried wolf. The boy cries wolf. There's no wolf. The townspeople come. He does that a couple of times. The town people keep coming, but there's no wolf. And then when he cries wolf, and there is a wolf, the townspeople don't come because like, oh, he's just playing wolf, or whatever.
Right.
And so that's like how I figured in my head, like, oh, I got a problem with my immune system. That's what the doctors told me. Complement immune deficiency. And if every time I eat some food, cooked food, it causes my immune system to react, I don't want it to like always react on the food I'm eating because it's supposed to nourish me. So I need to eat this raw food. And if I don't eat this raw food, I basically equated it with like, I'm going to be back in the hospital. I'm going to lose my life. So when you got a carrot and a stick, that hardcore to basically keep you straight and on the arrow, like most people, like they don't have a really strong reason. Like I seriously could lose my life. The doctor said I could be back in the hospital with another disease and not be so lucky. The next time I'm like, I ain't playing, I'm gonna just do this raw food thing because that's what they said. I mean, I didn't really know much else. And then I, was exposed to other, books and things because back then there was no internet.
Right.
Look up stuff. There was no YouTube. I wasn't getting educated. On some levels that was good because all the information was coming from books, which is generally, and I guess I can't even say that anymore. You would think truthful these days if the knowledge is in a book versus online. But yeah, so I just got started in that. And so I just basically went cold turkey. And I'm like, I'm going to learn how to do this and I'm going to like the food. And that's what I need to do. I mean, of course, I ain't perfect. And there's, times where I broke up and had some vegan, burritos, McDougal without oil or something, and had some baked potatoes at some point. And, and then I, got back on track and stuck raw for, many years with, like I'd say I was 99% raw. The 1% is like, things like nuts and herbs that are maybe dried at too hot of a temperature, but I didn't overtly eat bread. I didn't overtly steam vegetables. I didn't, unless I went to a potluck and somebody snuck something in, or I went to a raw food restaurant and they're using unauthorized foods in their preparations. Yeah. Like I ate basically all raw. A few years ago that changed a little bit, and I started including some heat processed foods based on some new information that I had. And basically, the new information, well, I mean, some of this, it came in all over time. So the
Hmm.
biggest piece of information was that like not all cooked foods causes leukocytosis. I learned this probably about 10 years
Oh,
in.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's only cooked. It's actually any animal products. So even the
Really?
worst vegan junk food cookie won't cause leukocytosis. And I've had personal friends that basically got a blood test at the lab, ate junky vegan cookies, and then waited and then got another blood test immediately to the lab, and they did not have a white blood cell rise count.
Wow,
So
I
like,
didn't know that.
yeah, so it's like, so not to say that you shouldn't eat cooked foods, because I
Right.
mean I'm still going to say that like most ways people cook foods is actually quite toxic. It
Hmm.
creates carcinogens, creates problems, and it's not healthy. So actually, what I've learned now is that the only way to healthfully cook food is by using water. So whether you want to sous vide it, whether you want to do a low temperature crock pot, whether you want to steam or boil or pressure cook, those are the only methods that I heat process my food these days, so I could get the heat processing benefit, because now when you heat process foods, now a whole new world opens up of all these foods that you couldn't eat as somebody who's only eating raw. Which actually, after getting a microbiome test, I'm like, man, I should have been eating not baked potatoes, but steamed potatoes all these years, because I have an overgrowth of a certain bacteria in my gut, the Provotella copri, that basically doesn't like potatoes, but maybe it probably loved the fruit that I've been eating in abundance. And
Right.
so that was like, whoa, maybe I've been eating too much fruit, and I didn't have a balanced diet. I mean, yeah, always ate a lot of vegetables. That's what I promote people to do. People tend to eat a lot of fruits easily, but they just don't get enough vegetables in. So yeah, I mean, I've been tweaking my whole journey, and this is my latest tweak. And will I stay on this? Will I change in a year? Will I go back to all raw? I mean, I don't know, but I'm going to say basically on how I'm feeling and doing now, it's unlikely, but still the majority of my diet, 80 to 90% of my calories on a daily basis is raw. Some days it's still 100%. Some days I just don't have time to cook stuff or don't care or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love the journey, A lot of people, especially that come from the older communities, like, when you have if you're from the raw community from 20 years ago, it's so ingrained in you that it's almost like it's basically like a religion. And
Yeah.
and you're not necessarily willing to let that go or make alterations, especially if you had an autoimmune disorder and you reversed it with this method. You're going to think, okay, this is it, this is the panacea. So I really appreciate the journey, because I'm the exact same way. I'm very open to learning new therapies. I'm very open to something that was good for me not necessarily working the same for someone else. And I think when you have that genuine approach to your wellness journey, you're going to help a lot more people, because now it's like, hey, you're just getting the best information that you have. You're not saying you're perfect or always right. And it's going to be an ongoing thing. But I mean, honestly, you really taught me something new. I did not know that, all cooked food didn't raise your white blood cell count. I thought it was pretty much anything that you cooked. So, and also, man, the doing the personal experimentation and getting your own tests and things done, that's something that we do as well. And it's like, if we're not doing this work ourselves, or we're not investigating and investing in this, you really don't know. People can pull the wool over your eyes. So can you it seems like you know a lot about the importance of healthy gut, and just, making sure to promote just like a healthy gut biome. Can you speak to what, like, people who are dealing with issues, like, how much of it is in the gut? How important is the gut and the microorganisms?
I mean, to me, the gut microbiome is, I mean, when I got into raw foods, there was no such thing as a gut microbiome. They didn't even have the technology available to determine it. And so a lot of the raw food, teachings back then were based on the best teachings they had and eating natural and stuff. But I believe that if some of the people that created some of the raw food, paradigms, if they knew about the microbiome, I would hope that they would change if they are truly doing this for their health,
Mm.
not just for some raw food dogma and eat raw because all the other animals on earth eat raw. But I mean, as humans, we've also evolved to cook our food, over fire, which I don't recommend that. But your digestive system is critical, man, because everything you're going to absorb has to go through your digestive system. And then more importantly, your microbiome now. I mean, listen to this book by Scientific American when I go on airplanes and on long, car rides and whatnot on the microbiome. It's like 20 chapters, and like every chapter they go over how this disease is affected by the microbiome and how that disease. So like, it's like there's a brain gut axis, how you think, and if you're depressed or not is based on your microbiome. There's a skin gut microbiome, lung microbiome. Like it's connected with, like, I've had friends that had sepsis and lost their lives of sepsis, and had friends that lost their lives of like pneumonia, and these all have gut microbiome relationships. So like if you don't have the right bugs in your microbiome, then you're more susceptible to getting sepsis, or more susceptible to getting pneumonia. And these are some raw food friends that I had back in the day that are no longer with us. And I'm like, maybe if they weren't so strict on their raw foods diet, they could have maybe had better microbiome that would have protected them from more diseases than just a raw vegan diet that is, in some levels fairly restrictive did to them. So I would say that, I mean, people watching this, the first thing I say is I'm no gut expert, right? I've gotten colonics, I've done a few enemas back in the day. I don't study this stuff. I study this stuff for me to know how my health is. But what I can tell, and I have a 1 hour long video where I actually share my microbiome results and share with people how to get a test, how to basically upload data to a different third-party website, and how to basically look at the results, which are all spread out even for you. And it'll tell you like pretty much easily, it'll decipher your results for you so that you don't have to be an expert, because I'm definitely no expert. I'm gonna have a friend actually going through a program right now who's going to become an expert and be able to do all that for people if they don't want to do it themselves. But my video shows that. So I recommend people get a microbiome test if they're serious about their health. It costs about $100. Maybe you find a 10% off coupon. I know there's a coupon called Romance for 10% off Ombre Labs, which is where I got my test from. And then you could see the results. Just watch my video and you can see how to upload it to the Biome site website, which basically kind of goes deeper than the Ombre, results will give you. And then you could see where you're at, man. And then you could make appropriate changes. Like one of the things that's most important to me is making sure I'm having enough short chain fatty acids, like the butyrate, propionate, and acetate that certain bacteria will make. And I have lots of acetate and propionate, but my butyrate is a little bit low. And butyrate is so important because if you don't make enough butyrate in your gut, and you could take endogenous butyrate maybe in a supplement, but it may not work the same way because it has to go through your digestive system. But the butyrate strengthens your gut walls, and like basically will make it so you don't have a leaky gut. And then there's other bacteria that basically burrow in, and it sounds kind of gross, but burrow in your gut walls like Akkermansia that basically eat the mucin layer, the mucus layer. And then when our body's a demand system, so like to work out, you need to like pump weights to gain muscles. If you don't lift weights or don't lift heavy stuff, you're never going to gain muscles because your body reacts to the stressor. Same thing, man. If you don't have the Akkermansia in your gut, your body, I don't have to make mucus, man. It's not disappearing. And then your body won't make it. But if there's an Akkermansia eating the mucin, which is the lining of your gut, your body's like, dude, we're getting eaten up, man. We need to make more of this stuff to coat our gut to protect it, right? So it's like I'm low in Akkermansia, I'm low in bifidobacteria, I have an overgrowth of Provotella. And it just basically opened my eyes on like, wow, how can I now, knowing this, instead of just going on my raw food diet dogmatically, because it's supposed to be the best diet ever and it healed me, right? How can I improve that to now get the results that I want? How can I make my Akkermansia go up? Because that's implicated with long-term health. I mean, they've done studies on centenarians, and I take some probiotic supplements such as the Kefir Lab Kefir, which I have a video on. I visited their place where they make it. I discussed their product. Their product has over 100 trillion probiotics in there, like live probiotics, right? And they get these from Europe. And some of the cultures they use basically the same bacteria that have been identified in Italian centenarians. So, I mean, that's the kind of bacteria I want in me, right? So, and it has 100 trillion. And even if 100 trillion don't make it to your gut because they get messed up in your digestive process, maybe 20% get through. And then meanwhile, you take a probiotic supplement, which is, freeze dried or whatever, and that has 6 billion, and then maybe you don't even get them all. But this product is a live food product, right? Cultured with the active bacteria that I've seen the data testing for, that has insane amounts of the bifido and other beneficial lactobacillus microbes that have all been basically studied in science. And I had an amazing interview with one of the people at the company, one of the researchers there. So the goal is get a microbiome test so you guys can see where you're at and see where you need help, right? Because I know where I need help because I got a test. And if I never got a test, I could just be, I'm just going to be raw vegan. And I'll be fine. I'll just continue what I'm doing. But obviously, what I was doing was not fine for me. Not to say that if you're raw vegan, it's not going to be fine for you, because I've had some raw vegan friends that have actually amazing microbiome tests. But it's so dependent on not just what we eat. It's like, how is your sleep-wake cycle? Or how much exercise, nature are you getting? What kinds of foods are you eating? You can eat a raw food diet eating nothing but bananas, dates, and romaine lettuce day in and day out. And that's not feeding your microbiome as much as a raw food diet where you have lettuce and escarole and endive, and you're eating sunchokes and eating some jicama and eating your different kinds of fruits that have different kinds of fiber, and eating aloe vera leaf and cactus pads and all these things that got, polysaccharides in them. And I don't know where everybody, but also too, I've seen some of my more long-term raw food friends actually also not have so good microbiome tests also. Based on what they're eating. And so then I could kind of think I could learn from them, but also it's not like a published study. It's the N of one. It's just my friends that have been eating the same way. I see some friends that maybe eat a more limited diet and their microbiome is not as good as mine. And then some friends that maybe have more consistency, eat more greens and maybe a little bit less fruit, their microbiome is a little bit better than mine. But of course, all the microbiomes I've seen, there's always things that can be improved upon. And the fact of the matter is, you're not going to know what your microbiome looks like unless you get tested.
Absolutely. So that's some pretty incredible information. I really, really appreciate that because, well, personally, I've been wanting to move towards eating raw, more like a fruitarian thing. But I've also been like, I don't think I'm going to go like 100%. Right now, I probably eat more of like what be considered an alkaline diet. I focus on making my food from scratch, using fresh vegetables. I just started a garden. I know you've got a really amazing garden. And so I want to eat more from the earth and make amazing food. But it never really resonated with me to just only eat raw food. And I think that we have to take in consideration our modern environment, because I think the environment just plays a really big role on our body. We have some amazing adaptability as human beings. I think our machinery, our body is it's capable of so much. And almost like going back to what you said earlier about like doing the long-term juicing and people not being successful, we have to come up with methods that people are going to be successful with. Because like, maybe you could tell somebody the best information and maybe it will be like the greatest thing for them as an individual. But if they're not ready to accept it and apply it, it might just feel overwhelming and they might just not do anything. They just get paralysis from like too much information. And so it's important, I think, to really look at this as a journey. And I'm going to encourage people to go, maybe we could link some of the videos that you referenced where you talk about your microbiome, the testing and everything, because these are amazing tools we could use. We don't have to necessarily have a PhD or anything. We could just, use these tools to just help us navigate and make better decisions. So I really appreciate that. Now, I definitely wanted to get into some of this information about the juicers because, as you mentioned earlier, it's very easy to think, oh, this person, they've got these, $4,000 juices. They got a $400 juicer. They've got a $50 juicer. They're all doing the same thing. As me and you both know, that's not true. So what we're doing is we're probably going to be working with a lot of people who are like kind of entry level. This might be their first experience with juicers. They might have got one for Christmas or whatever, and they don't really use it. Can you speak to like, where are some good places to start with juicers? maybe where are some places where people, if they want to spend a little extra money, where would it be beneficial? And also, if you could speak to like the difference in juicers and actual quality of the juice that you get.
Yeah, it's a lot to cover, man.
I know
so,
it's
so I'll just put it like this, man. Like, okay, say you're a guy or a girl, and you're just going to the shoe store, and you just say, "Give me a pair of shoes, man. I want the best pair of shoes." I never wore shoes before, right? What's the shoe store gonna say? He's gonna tell you, the shoe guy, he's gonna, or the girl. He says, "What are you gonna do with the shoes, man? You go to the beach. You're gonna go play tennis. You can go rock climbing. You play in some hoops. You playing football. Like, you got to get the right shoe for the sport or for the activity. You're going to the beach. They're not going to say some high heels if you're a lady, but if you're going to a wedding, you can't be wearing the flats that don't look that nice. So like the juices are the same thing. So I think the person needs to figure out what kind of person they are and how much they want to invest, because that's really going to determine what they could get, right? I mean, I could recommend a gamut from like the low budget ones that are going to be decent or that'll even just work for a while because you're not serious about it, to like, high end ones that are going to get more juice for you or more nutrition. So, and like, I don't want to just blanket statement like every newbie should get the Nama J2 because that's my favorite. Like,
right.
I mean, I see a lot of newbies just get the Nama J2 because it is my favorite, and it works out for many of them. But some people, I've also seen some people that, I don't like the Nama J2 for this reason, and I'd rather have a Santa, or they'd rather get a vacuum blender, or they'd rather get even a high speed machine, which actually I never recommend or use unless you won't juice otherwise, right? So it's just so various. So that's why I really, focus on making the videos on my YouTube channel, Discount Juicers YouTube channel, where I compare every major brand juicer on the market and I test it, and you could hear my expert opinions because I have been juicing for 28 years. I've had a business selling juicers for 25 years, and I'm making videos on YouTube for the last 15 years to, compare all the different juicers on the market so that people could learn the right one for them. Because some people might want the most nutrition and they don't care about how hard it is to clean. Some people are just so busy in their lives and they don't want to sit there and push each item into the juicer and, take a half hour, right? And so I don't know, it's hard to really, say, hey, one juicer, what is it? Like, I really can't. It depends on the person. And also what you're going to juice. Like some juicers, like, hey, if I'm growing okra in my garden, which I'm growing okra in my garden, and the pods get too big, they get really fibrous. They're not really good for eating raw or even cooked, but I could put them to the juicer and it basically separates out the fiber from the juice. And the juice of okra is like the green slime. If you ever had that when you were a kid, and you could play with that stuff. I made a video where I juice okra in a juicer like this. And it's just like, it's like the slime stuff, man. It's like all oozing. And when you try to drink it, it almost choked me because it's that thick. It's like full of mucilage, the polysaccharides, or the fiber, or whatever. It's a trip. But like, I would never put those in the Nama. I wouldn't even put those in any other juicer besides this machine. And if you want to juice fibers, things without getting clogged or jammed, without having to pre-cut it, then this machine is going to be great. If you want, going to juice cannabis leaves like I've juiced before, like, I mean, the Nama will juice it, but this juice will juice it better because this style is better for juicing a high volume of leafy greens. But less oxygen in the juice. It runs at a lower RPM, 40 revolutions per minute. But like, say you're John, I'm going to go on a watermelon fruit juice fast or orange or grape juice fast because that's the person I'm following online. They say go on a fruit juice fast, which I personally don't recommend people do. But if you want to do that, then this is the worst machine for that, right? So it always just depends, man. There's so many variables. So if you explain maybe what your community is going to be trying to juice and your goals, I can maybe then kind of focus in and kind of give a specific answer in general for people, in your community, kind of going on the program you're recommending.
Yeah, so we're definitely going to be doing a blend of fruits and like leafy greens and vegetables. So it's something that would need maybe moderate versatility across, maybe not something that is like the best for leafy greens or the best for, fruit, something that can perform well across that spectrum, and then, yield yield obviously is important, but I do understand that's going to come with different price. So I would just say something that has a moderate performance across the spectrum, and then also like nutritional value, I think would be like the highest. In my opinion, that's the vantage point I come from. It's kind of like I want to get a high nutritional value from it, even more so than a yield. So I don't know if there's something that fits in there. Like I told you off camera, I actually have the Nama too myself. And based on your recommendation, I actually started with a Omega. I don't remember the model number, but it was one of the Omega slow masticating. It was like a vertical juicer, and then I went to the Nama. So is that can you maybe work with that?
Yeah, sure. So basically, like every juicer depends on the way it operates and depends on the produce you're putting into it will determine the nutrient quality. So for example, like between these two, I would say the Santa basically grinds up and blows open cell walls more effectively. It'll make actually a darker colored juice than the Nama would. So that to me means it's pulling out more nutrition. Now there's a caveat. Darker isn't always better because darker could be more pigments from the produce, but it also could mean a reaction of the oxidation
Right.
happening to make it more brownish
Mm.
versus like deeper color, right? So like a high speed juicer, I would say eliminate a high speed juicer because that's at the bottom of the nutrition scale. Those ones that sound really, loud and like they run really high. And those are the ones that are commonly sold in department stores. And, the Breville is one. So that's the bottom of the rung. Probably moving up to that, you have maybe like, I would say, the slow juicers. So like a single auger style juicer, such as the Nama or other vertical juicers, they tend not to grind up quite as well. And then up one level from that, the Santa would make a bit higher quality juice. This is also dependent on the RPM. So like this machine has 4 speeds. You could run it
Oh,
from like 40 RPM on speed number 1 all the way up to like 120 RPM on speed number 4. So,
wow.
it takes like 3 times longer to juice at the lower RPM, but now you're introducing significantly less air. So I actually have a video juicing celery at 40 RPM and the same quantity at 120 RPM. So you could see the yield difference as well as the oxidation difference because all the foam on top of the juice that I show in that video. And then
Wow.
going up from this level, then after this, I would say something like the Green Star juicer. Would I
Mm.
even say Green Star? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I might say pure juicer actually, or like a Norwalk where you grind it and press it. Even though that makes a high yield, I personally, and the owner of Pure will argue with me on this one, and I accept that. I personally believe that does not make the highest quality juice. And for many years it was the king of making the high quality juices back in the day, 100 years ago. But there's a lot of dogma that's being repeated, unfortunately, in my opinion, that is not accurate. Now, it does make the highest yield in most cases. There'll be exceptions, of course, because the issue is the grinding happens at like 3,000, 4,000 RPM. So there's some oxidation happening. And then when you put things in the bag and you press it out, the stuff in the press bag, the liquid comes through the press cloth, but there's some nutrients left in the press bag that don't come through that would come through something like the Nama. So you could get
Mm.
a darker juice in the Nama because there's holes that are much more bigger size particle than the cloth on the pure juicer.
Ah.
But at the same time, the pure juicer, because it puts it under extreme pressure, that also blows open additional cell walls to get other nutrients out that say like the Nama would not. So like I take the pulp out of the Nama, put it in the pure juicer, I press it out again, and then the juice tastes even stronger. Like when I juice cabbage, it's like almost unbearable because those are the isothiocyanates forming because of the enzyme reaction with the myrosinase and the glucosinolates to make the isothiocyanates. And anyway, these are my thoughts in my head. I don't have any, there's no published studies in this, but this is what I've experienced. Because like, man, why is this juice taste weak and this juice tastes strong? And the
Right.
only thing I did different was press out the pulp because the press puts things under extreme pressure and blows open more cell walls than a juicer could. So on some level that's good, but then also some of the nutrients are retained by the press cloth. Okay. So then moving up to the next level, then we got twin gear juicers, right?
Mm.
That grind at a slow RPM, that have magnetic and bioceramic technology, that then basically simulate a Norwalk, but putting it through a juicing screen. So you get more particulate, you get a darker juice on there. The downside with those are that they're harder to clean. Runs at a lower RPM than like a Norwalk or a pure juicer. And then the pinnacle of nutrition quality as well as yield, if you want both worlds, right, is
Okay.
what I call vacuum juicing, which actually I didn't even invent. I wasn't even smart enough to invent that. I actually went up to Tom Dixon at Blend Tech, and he was coming out with a vacuum blender for the Blend Tech, which I'm still using today, which unfortunately got only released in a limited quantity, then they stopped making it. But basically, he introduced me to vacuum juicing, where you basically vacuum blend, right, with in an environment that has an oxygen deprivation. So little oxygen in there, you blend it up. The blender is more efficient at grinding things up to a smaller particle size, even than the pure grinder, even than any juicer out there. It's done under an oxygen deprived environment, so you're not getting the oxidation during the grinding process. And then
Right.
he invented a bag that you put the mixture through and squeeze out that has a larger pore size than the Norwalk or the pure juicer. So now you get some of that particulate. So that actually makes the highest yield and most nutrition. So provided your recipes are congruent and can be used with that method of juicing, that method is a bit more work because you got to pre-cut things, you got to put in the blender. When you're using it under vacuum, you can't use a tamper. And then you
Mm.
press it out with your hands. Some people don't like pressing out with their hands. You could get a machine to do that. But, you know, I find my hands are quite efficient and I don't need to spend another $500 to get a press when my hands could get pretty much the same results, but and get some hand exercise, some grip strength at the same time. So people might say, "Oh, but I'm old, John. I can't do it." I mean, whatever. Everybody's on their own trip, but this is what I think. So
Right.
yeah, so I would say that that is the pinnacle. You might have to, because on those, if you're going to juice in that method, you can't just juice, you know, straight kale, for example. But if you have like half cucumbers and half kale, that recipe would work because what is going to happen is the cucumbers, you cut them up into little pieces on the bottom of the blender, they'll liquefy, pull the
Mm.
kale in, it'll get ground up, you pour that mixture through a bag, you squeeze out the bag, and you got the highest yield, highest nutrition quality. Two reasons. Number one, the grinding is being done without oxygen, unlike every other juice on the market.
Right.
Number two, the blender is more efficiently at grinding things up to a finer particle size, even than a pure juicer with the press that blows open cell walls. The blender is doing multiple hits on the produce to open it up, whereas a juicer might hit a few times, but then it kicks out the produce finally. And then
Mm.
you're putting it through the bag that has a larger pore size, you know, not quite as big as the screen on a juicer, but it's quite sufficient to pull out lots of nutrition. So yeah, so that might be the solution. And of course, if you have a vacuum blender, you can also do vacuum blended smoothies and other vacuum blended items. I do vacuum blended dressings, vacuum blended soups. And so I would basically sum it up and say the two best things you guys want to get is like a vacuum blender. At present time, I recommend the DynaPro vacuum blender with a Letz's nut milk bag to do the vacuum juicing. Do that because that's gonna get the most. Sometimes, you know, like if I do volume juicing. So like if I had to do like quarts of juice, it would just take me too long and I would get frustrated and I would just not do it. And I know
Mhm.
some people out there are like that. Like some people are going to do whatever it takes. Like I know you seem like the type of guy like, oh, it makes more nutrition, man. I don't care how much time it takes. I'm going to do it because I'm worth it. Right.
Yeah.
But some people are out there like, man, I ain't going to do all that stuff, John. So for that reason, I would get that solution so you could vacuum blend smoothies and other things, and then maybe sometimes vacuum juice when you got the time on a weekend. But then I'd say otherwise, get the NAMA because this is the good all around, all purpose juicer that just makes juicing easier because you just open up the lid, put the stuff in, close the lid, turn it on, you walk away, it juices, you come back, you got a juice, you clean the machine, and you're done.
Yeah. Wow. Man, see, I knew you were the right person, man. I knew,
Nobody
you
else is
know,
going to tell you all this stuff, man. Nobody else experimented with all these things over 28 years playing with because here's the reason why. It's not, I mean, yeah, it's great. I get to share this with others, but I'm selfish, man. I want to know the best for me, man, and
right,
what I
right.
want to do. And yeah, sometimes I vacuum blend because I'm like, man, I got some expensive turmeric or ginseng and I don't want to like be wasting it. So I'll do that vacuum blend. But sometimes I'm like, man, I got so much produce, just crank it through here. I'll make like, you know, 8 quarts and then vacuum seal it for later and drink like, you know, 1 quart a day or 2 quarts a day or whatever.
Yeah. But that's I mean, honestly, man, I just first of all, I want to say I do want to give you your roses because I don't know what your experience is. You have a ton of content. I have not gone through it all, but I have heard other people talk about you. I know you interact with other creators and things of that nature. You've been doing this for so long. And then also, hey, selfish or not, you're sharing your journey, which is extremely beneficial to, everybody who gets to interact with your content. And I'm personally very appreciative. I really, like you said, you're not going to find this type of information. No one's going into this type of detail. Usually it's just somebody promoting a juicer because they have an affiliation, or or they're the creators. I just really, really appreciate your content. I thank you for generously sharing your time and being with our community here. I just want to make sure that you are appreciated. So um, but yeah, man, I never heard of this vacuum seal blender. Like I'm gonna have to do a little research now because I've never heard of that, and it sounds really, really good. We have a Nama here, and I think it's very telling that I mean, I guess we do our research too to a degree. If you're suggesting the same one we have, but it also sounds like for somebody who is like really hardcore, they could potentially get at least two different units, or even three, depending on how where they want to take this. So for people who are listening and they're looking to learn, I do want to make sure that you guys know that John's an amazing resource. So on YouTube, discountjuicers.com, right? That's your YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's my website also. And of course, I will mention that, I'm an affiliate with many different companies. So if you want to get the NAMA, you could go to namawell.com and use my coupon code DJ55 to save $55 off. When people use that code, I'm gonna help you guys out by saving you guys $55, 10% off, but also you guys are gonna help me out. So I appreciate that. That's how I am able to talk to you today and have time to get my light bill and buy my produce, these days. And if you want to get that vacuum blender, which I could pull down if you want to see that on here, I recommend the TriVest DynaPro, and you could go to trivest.com/DJ10, which is where I'll share a 10% off coupon for you guys. And of course, when you guys use that code, you'll save about $60 on the DynaPro. And then also the TriVest company will share me a small commission so I could once again continue my work to, put the content out there. And, I mean, when my life was saved, man, like way back in the day, like one of the things I promised, like, when I prayed, I was like, hey, if I get out of here, man, a big part of my life is going to be living in service. Because if I learned that, like, if money is not the most important thing, because it couldn't have saved my life, like, why are people spending their whole lives just making this money stuff? Like, and I thought, like, how can I help others? Like, I'm like, man, if I get out of this, I'm gonna learn how to get out of this for myself, and then more importantly, I'm gonna share this with other people so that my life could be useful, and that I was given a second chance for a reason to be on this planet to help others on their health journey. Because I like literally had to go to the school of hard knocks to like learn everything I did through experiences, through reading, through looking up. I still look up scientific published studies on a regular basis when I'm bored. And I publish a lot of content on 3 YouTube channels. I mean, people just think I got one, but I got like 3 YouTube channels teaching about the juicers on one, teaching about how to grow your own high quality food on another, and teaching about like plant-based raw diet on another channel, where I really go deep and just share everything I know without having to like, oh, you got to buy my program so you could have my information. Like, I just put it out there for free because like that I'm happy to be alive, honestly, and I really want to try to make a difference in the world.
You are. I mean, you are. I think that you probably have a much greater impact than you could ever imagine, because you never knew me. You never knew the type of impact that you had on me. I mean, I've got a fairly nice sized community, and part of the information I teach is from what I learned from you. So, I mean, you just never know, and that's okay, But I'm curious, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I just started getting into gardening. I've been researching it for a while, but this year I'm like really, really committed. Do you particularly have any, like, I notice I hate these types of questions, but like do you have any advice for, tips for gardening? I know right now I'm dealing with like nutsedge. And I don't even know if it's important to like keep these kind of plants out of the garden because, it just kind of grows. And, obviously I don't want to use chemicals or anything like that. It's really hard to pull out. Do I need to even worry about something like that? Is that just for aesthetics? Or is there a natural way to like deal with nutsedge or, crabgrass, stuff like that? I mean, I don't even know if you know the answer, but I just figured I'd ask.
Yeah, so actually the funny thing is, man, in part of my garden, I actually purposely planted nutsedge.
Okay.
And the reason for it is because that actually makes these tubers called chufa tubers or tiger nuts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and actually at the time, it was a hard thing for me to find seed because I learned about it and like nobody was selling the seed. This was before they got popular in the health food store. And actually, I had to buy turkey. Basically, they sold these chufa nuts to basically attract turkeys so that people could, shoot them and kill them because they plant them in the wild. So that's actually how I got my nutsedge to plant because I learned it was an amazing food. Carbohydrate source could be used raw, made in milk, chufa milk in Mexico and whatnot, tiger milk, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I keep it in its own raised bed so it doesn't like spread out and like harvesting the fresh little, nutsedge thing, tuber things are good. But the crabgrass is another story. Like, so here's the thing, man. Like, a gardener that knows a lot more than me that I visited many times on Maui, my friend Stefan, he's like, John, you could be either a friend with the weeds or an enemy with the weeds, but there's no in between. And so you have to determine if you want to be a friend with the weeds or an enemy of the weeds. You could try to pull them all, which is his approach, where he plants other things. Like he lives in Hawaii, so he basically pulled out all the weeds and he planted this thing called perennial peanut grass, which basically took over. And then every time he's walking, he sees a weed popping up in between him, and he keeps it suppressed pretty good. He'll pull it out.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, like the nut sedge is a grass family, the crabgrass is the grass family. If you're friends with it, man, you could pull those out and chop the leaves off and juice them up in your juicer, man. They're totally juiceable. They're nutrition for us.
Uh-huh.
But and the issue is like some of those are spreaders and they're going to take over. So then they could compete, they could outcompete the vegetables you're planting next to them.
Right.
So, so the goal for me, if I got a new property with nutsedge or, crabgrass, my goal would be to probably to like smother it out the first step. So I basically sheet mulch it with several layers of cardboard over it to smother it out, and then just build my raised beds or put soil over that, wood chips over that to keep it on the top, and basically just kill them out because they won't have any sun, and make sure
Right.
there's no gaps in between the cardboard where they could grow up and get the sun.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Okay.
probably my goal right there is just to kind of get rid of it as an initial goal. I mean, like my friend recently just had his whole like 1 acre property bulldozed, which I think is fairly extreme. But if you want to do a one-time rototilling or weed whacking or whatever you got to do to get rid of it without chemicals, that's a choice you have to make. I would probably rather smother them out some natural method and not have to pull them out. And it depends also, how bad it was. Like if there's just, they're here and there, I'd pull them out. If you have kids or you could hire some people, labor is always best because you just manually pay them, whatever $10 an hour or whatever the going rate is to pull them out by hand, and pull them out by the roots to get rid of them all, or just do the
Okay.
labor yourself. Work on little sections, 10 by 10 section. That's what I'm going to pull today. Get that clear, and then I'm going to move to the next 10 by 10 section. I mean, that's just the fun of gardening, man. Getting your hands in the dirt, and grounding out.
Yeah, definitely ground out, man. Listen, that was very helpful because I was looking up ways to get rid of it last night, and someone mentioned that the little nodules or whatever, the little nuts, you could use them, you could eat them. I guess you make milk out of them, all these things. So the whole plant is edible, except can you eat the roots too?
And I would have to look that up. I would probably think yes, but I'd have to look that up for sure. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay. Yeah, I think I like your approach where you have it controlled and you're using it for because my belief is that when it comes to, these quote unquote weeds, like anything that would be considered a weed, well, first of all, it's a plant, but it's like nature and it's not a nuisance if you understand the benefit of it. Like dandelions and stuff are amazing. So I'm not really, I don't, if it weren't for the fact that there's a fear that it's going to smother out my other vegetables and things that I'm growing, I would just leave it. So I think I might take your approach, kind of approach it and dig it out myself. I do like being in the garden, getting sun and grounding and everything. So, yeah, and then maybe I'll just use the plant and eat it or something. We'll see. But that's a really good alternative. Oh, I did want one follow up. So if I were to, because I was thinking about like, pretty much smothering it out. If I were to smother it out, let's say with like layers of wood chips or something like that, and then I cleared it, would it come back? Is it like, will it come back? Because you mentioned cardboard, which probably just completely cut it off for a long time from the sun. But if I did it for a season or two, would it come back, do you think?
So where do you live?
Texas.
All right, Texas. Yeah, so like I was just in Florida at this lady's house, and she just put the cheap fabric like cloth, landscape cloth over her green nursery area, and the stuff was growing underneath it and pushing it up because too much light was
Wow.
getting through there because she cheaped out and she didn't get the black fabric, that's thicker. So
Hmm.
I mean, I wouldn't just put wood chips because it'll grow through wood chips if you just smack it down and then put wood chips. That's why you got to put a couple layers of cardboard because it
Okay.
can't get the light through the cardboard, and the cardboard over time will basically break down and worms will digest it and it'll feed the soil. But for depending on where you live and how much it rains and whatnot, it's going to stay there for a period of time. So it's going to smother stuff out and it will break down over time. So if you did it the way I'm mentioning with several layers of cardboard and then wood chips on top, or even just compost on top to plant in the raised beds, or if you're going to build raised beds on it, then I would just let that stuff break down. By the time that stuff breaks down, you shouldn't necessarily have a problem. The issue is if you put because I did this, if you put one layer of cardboard, by the time that breaks down, might not be long enough to fully kill the plant because the roots are still staying alive under the ground. But if you put two or three layers, or you got some thick cardboard, then that's going to take a lot longer to break down. And then by that time, the plant will die. So I don't want to say like so many factors. I don't want to say like do this and it's going to work. Like
Yeah.
several layers of cardboard. I don't usually see people put more than like three layers of just standard, cardboard.
Mhm.
Appliance cardboard, like if you like, they do appliance deliveries for like a refrigerator. That cardboard is usually pretty thick. I try to get the, obviously the brown cardboard that has minimal printing on it and no colored stuff.
Right. Well, John, this has been amazing. I really appreciate your knowledge, and I'm going to probably I'll get all your discount codes and any links and everything you have, and I'll be adding it to the video so people can very easily access that, get their discount, which we really appreciate as well. And also, I'm going to encourage the community to make sure to go check out John's website. It's website to YouTube, it's all the same. Are you on Instagram as well?
Yeah, so just my personal Instagram is at growing your greens, which is basically just my personal Instagram. I show a little bit of the juices I make. I show a little bit of gardening I do and the foods I'm eating, and yeah, whatever.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Check, John. I mean, you know what? I probably didn't know you had multiple channels because I've seen your gardening content. I just probably didn't put two and two together. But I'm definitely going to be checking you out because like I've seen, like your fruit force and everything you got going on. And I want to create that environment as well. Like I would love to eliminate 80% of my grocery shopping. Like that's what I would like to do. So anyway, if you guys enjoyed this video, definitely make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, check out John's channel. I'm gonna make sure to put all the links and everything in the description. And as always, the application of knowledge is power, and I'm gonna see you all next time.